This here is the TAR-21 assault rifle. It was added in Day 4 of Crime Fest 2018 alongside the Claire shotgun and the compound bow. So you can take a look at the stats on the right. Now, while this is a beauty of a gun, it's unfortunately lacking in many things. First off, for the available mods, you can have a barrel extension, a boost, custom, gadget, magazine, and sight, much like most of the assault rifles. Unfortunately, there are no mods that are unique to the TAR, so there's nothing that only the TAR can take, and especially no Mars sight. That's very disappointing, at least for me. So the way I've modded this is for, well, a relative balance. So I have the stubby compensator, concealment boost, auto fire, 45-degree red dot sight, speed pull magazine, and the speculator sight. Now, while I did say this weapon is lacking many things, it might be more apt to say that all assault rifles are pretty lacking as of now. But I'll get more into that later. So for this weapon in particular, it lacks modding, but it actually has relatively decent stats otherwise. For an assault rifle, this one has absurdly good starting concealment, meaning it's a prime weapon for crits and the like. And due to the weaker nature of assault rifles, it's almost necessary to use crits, or some form of damage enhancement, like Berserker, to be able to use these mid-tier assault rifles on the highest difficulty. So for me, I'm using it with a crit build, and it's much easier to build around than most assault rifles. Most can only really get to about 20 concealment or so, which means you either need an absurdly concealed secondary, or you need to spend more skill points to ace a low blow. The TAR-21 starts at 26 concealment, and even so, it still has relatively acceptable accuracy and stability. So most weapons modded purely for concealment tend to have very poor handling. So when comparing the TAR-21 to the other mid-tier assault rifles, it's actually ahead of the pack in some ways. And by mid-tier, I mean stuff like the AK-5, the CAR-4, and the recently added Union. However, unlike some of those weapons, the TAR-21 also lacks excelling at any one thing. For example, the CAR-4, it can get much better concealment from modding, and a fully decked out AK-5 can pull out some insane stability and accuracy, a good 80 plus for each stat. So due to the lack of modding, the TAR-21 is a bit more of a jack of all trades, master of none. If you're looking to get the most out of it, it's going to be a little bit harder than some of the other options. Now, for stuff like the skills that you want to use with it, I don't really think you need a body expertise setup to get the most out of it. You know, some people will tell you that. You should be going for headshots anyway, and with how assault rifles work, you'll probably be using it mostly at closer ranges. You know, most of them can't really push the farther ranges. It also doesn't need the myriad of assault rifle reload skills, cause it can be modded with a speed pull mag, which pretty much makes all those skills obsolete. And even if you don't have access to that particular mod, it still has a relatively fast reload for assault rifles. So from what I've been saying, it actually seems pretty solid overall, and you know, you'd be right, it actually is. But my real problem is that assault rifles in general are very, very lackluster. This one is no exception. Anything that it does, it can be done better by another weapon type. Take LMGs for example. LMGs are pretty much better versions of assault rifles with better pickup and high density killing capabilities. Sure, they don't have the concealment, but they make up for it in every other way. Pistols, while normally very similar to assault rifles in terms of efficiency, they can get extra damage from skills, and that makes them much more effective as well as precise because there's also a lot of accuracy skills as well. Pistols also have a really easy time getting better concealment for building purposes. And since assault rifles take up a primary slot, you have to somehow justify taking one of those over the myriad of strong weapon types in that slot. LMGs, akimbos, snipers, you name it. Assault rifles really feel like bottom of the barrel type weapons. You know, they're just too average. They have okay pickup, okay range and stability, okay versatility. There's nothing about them that would make me want to pick them up over something else, you know? This is the type of weapon that maybe if I were a low-level player starting out in the game, I would use it. But, you know, anyone with sufficient leveling, sufficient time in the game, and any knowledge of the skills could make a better setup with just about any other weapon type. There's not many really handy assault rifle skills that drastically change how effective they are, and that makes them hard to justify bringing when, you know, we're going to one down on death sentence or even death wish. I mean, I get that they're supposed to be okay at everything, excel at nothing, jack of all trades, master of none, but even calling it okay is kind of pushing it, you know? Unless you build for it, most assault rifles have pretty piss poor accuracy and stability, meaning you can't push out much range at all. And since most of the time crits are how you get the majority of the low tier and mid tier assault rifles to be usable, you're never actually going to be able to use it for long range. And trying to compete with the weapons that excel at close range, the assault rifles will lose 100% of the time. To shotguns, to LMGs, whatever. Really, assault rifles just need a little bit of help, you know? I'd like to see them be able to use a little bit more range. I don't know, assault rifles in general, they just feel so outclassed, and I feel like I'm not the only one that feels this way. So that's really my problem with the assault rifles in general, not just the TAR-21. If anything, like I said earlier, the TAR-21 is actually pretty nice. It's got decent starting concealment, a nice looking model, much better than the F2K in my opinion. That thing just looks fat, and I just wish I had more reason to use assault rifles.